One wrong address sometimes takes you where you actually belong. The line wasn't printed anywhere. It drifted in my head as the taxi ignored the station I'd asked for and obeyed the green pin on my new old phone. "Turn right on Maple," the app insisted, and the driver did, wipers ticking in the rain. "Boss, the app says home," he said into the mirror. "That you?" "Not mine," I said, and I didn't correct him. The phone had belonged to a kid with a chipped tooth. I'd meant to wipe it. Notes, playlists, the address labeled home, but erasing demands intention, and I was tired of intentions. I had a late train, a backpack, and the old habit of moving on before any room learned my name. Let the pin decide one thing. I was tired of deciding. We slipped under the ribs of an elevated track into a street of row houses, standing shoulder to shoulder. The taxi stopped beside a mulberry whose leaves shone like wet coins. The phone chirped. "You have arrived." "You sure?" the driver asked. I paid him and stayed until the engine became part of the rain. The door opened before I knocked. A woman with walnut dark hair and the practiced calm of someone who fixes more than she breaks looked me over and said, "You're late, but you came." She stepped aside. "Come in before the weather changes its mind. I'm Marina." Inside smelled like cumin and soap. In the hallway, photographs marched in their frames. On a small table sat a taped cardboard box. Across the lid, in a careful hand, "The thing is to remember." "I think there's been a courier?" she asked, and the hope in the words straightened my spine. A motorized wheelchair hummed. A young man rolled in and studied me with amused intensity. "You made it, finally." "I might not be who you expect. The phone—" "Dima's phone," Marina said, testing the name out loud, listening for an echo. "He said a courier would bring the box when he couldn't. He said not to worry, it would arrive anyway." She touched the box with 2 fingers, like checking a pulse. He liked instructions that were also jokes. I'd never met Dima. The kid in the shop only shrugged when I asked why someone else's home was still pinned to his map. But the name made the hallway tilt. "I don't know him," I said. "I bought the phone." "Accident then," Sava said, pleased. "Accident is one of our good relatives." He stuck out his hand. "Sava." I should have apologized and left for my train. Instead, I followed the gravity of expectation into their kitchen. We made tea the color of a good apology. I told them about the detour. Marina listened, like details were stitches holding the story together. My phone buzzed like an insect nearing its last decision. On the screen, an old message unfurled, time-stamped 2 weeks ago. "If you've made it to my mother's place, open the glove in the gray coat by the door. D." The battery sulked at 8%. I reached into a gray coat with a missing button and found an envelope gone soft from being imagined. On the front, "For the courier, for my mother." I handed it to Marina. She pressed it to her heart, then set it atop the box with ceremony. "Stay and help us open it. If you aren't the courier, you're the next best explanation." We cleared the table and peeled the tape. Under newspaper lay an orderly chaos. Cassette tapes, labeled in that steady hand. First day of school, Dad's laughter, the river in November. An old MP3 player with a dent, a cracked Polaroid camera, a worn scarf. Tickets, a small wooden box of folded slips. On the underside of its lid, more writing. "A game for when I'm late. Pick 2 slips and do what they say with whatever you find in the big box. Waiting turns into remembering." "I hate games," Marina said, smiling despite herself. He loved rules designed to be broken kindly. Sava drew first. "Share, then forgive." "Share Dad's laughter," he announced. We found a speaker in the drawer that was a museum of leftovers. Rubber bands, foreign coins, a lonely key. The MP3 player flickered to life. After a hiss like distance clearing its throat, a laugh rolled out. Specific, round, the kind that tells you the ending will be generous. Marina's hand went to her mouth. Sava leaned forward until the wheels chairs whispered. The laugh filled the kitchen like a light coming on in a familiar room. My slips were return and tell. I returned the Polaroid to purpose by taking a picture of the three of us, my shoulder a shy punctuation in the frame. For tell, I admitted a smaller truth. I left places. Leaving had grown into the only thing I did on time. I carried a train schedule like proof that my absence could be punctual. Marina drew keep and keep, which we pretended not to notice. She looped the scarf around her neck and said, "He bought this the week Sava was born." The scarf remembered her shoulders. We played until the tea gave up. Share the river. Keep the tickets. Forgive the camera. Tell how the coat lost its button. The tapes turned, and in their grain, you could hear tinier lives happening just off stage. The spoon against a pot, a small voice narrating the moon in the kettle lid. The house leaned in like a listener. The phone died with a tidy finality. My train time slid past without fanfare. At midnight, Marina opened the envelope. Dima's handwriting stood up straight. He wrote about choosing the objects, about giving them away to cross the city without him, about accident promoted to purpose. At the end, "Mother, the box is not the past. It is the verb we use to carry it." "You'll stay?" Sava asked, auditing reality. "At least tonight." "For tonight," I said, and felt my answer move something heavier.
I slept on their couch. In the morning, the mulberry practiced sunlight. The Polaroid had developed into a square of proof. Marina in the scarf, Sava leaning toward the sound of joy, my shoulder like an earnest ghost. On the back I wrote, "The evening we started turning waiting into remembering." I found work nearby at a copy shop. Evenings I carried groceries to Marina's kitchen and learned the names of herbs I'd been eating without introduction. On Thursdays we opened the big box and chose 2 slips. Sava called it class. The train schedule in my backpack wore down at the folds. I kept one half for luck and threw the other away behind the shop with the warm dust. When a serious wind shouldered down the block, the lights flickered and returned. We lit a candle anyway because flame makes remembering feel like a faith. That night the slips told us, forgive and return. We forgave each other for being late to the lives we wanted. I returned the habit of leaving to the city's lost and found, where it could keep company with lopsided umbrellas. Marina pressed play, and Dima's laugh lifted a corner of the dark again. We added our own slips. Visit the river, teach the recipe, start again, and folded them into the small box beside Dima's rules. Start again came up the next Thursday. We didn't wipe anything clean, we set the table. Sava showed me how to thread the scarf through a jacket sleeve when the weather refuses cooperation. Marina taught me to salt water so pasta remembers who it is. I taught them the printer's tap that squares a stack of paper. We made a recording called "The Way We Sound When We're Not Trying." It was mostly the kettle. The big box grew lighter, not empty. Objects never forgive us enough to become only objects again. But the weight distributed itself among us until the table knew our elbows. Some evenings I walked by the station and watched the departures without feeling summoned. Some mornings the retired phone tried to route me to the station and I let it, then turned left at the Mulberry and arrived at a table where a chair waited. On a soft snow morning we found a tape labeled "Next Week." Dima's voice, quieter as if speaking from another room, said, "If you're hearing this, we did it, turned waiting into remembering. Remember to invite the visitor to pick a slip first." We laughed because the instruction arrived long after we'd obeyed it. I won't pretend there was a day when I declared I was staying. The map in my head didn't plant a flag, it simply stopped insisting on elsewhere. The green pin never moved, but I did until standing in Marina's doorway with groceries felt like continuing a sentence I liked. Home, the app would have called it, as if it had known all along. If anyone asks how I learned that, I say it lived in the scratch of tape peeling, in a laugh from a small speaker that made spoons tremble, in steam clouding a kitchen window while we named what to keep and what to return. A courier delivered a package and then, on purpose, delivered himself. We didn't fix the past, we filed it properly. The night I missed my train was the night a stranger's home stopped being a label and became a room with our voices in it. The right address, found by mistake.